in Paris for two with 7 nights accommodation. It's an awfully good offer.
See the team at Benchmark, building supplies, Benchmark.
When you need new tyres, you need them now. The thing is, the right tyre can be a big ticket item. At Tyre Power, we get around that with a Tyre Power Power Card. Power Card gives you the power to buy your tyres when you need them, and you get up to 50 days credit absolutely free. Power Card can also mean special discounts on a whole range of Tyre Power services. Power Card, power to keep you on the road and save you money. Apply at any Tyre Power outlet now.
Welcome back. Here's the dividends for the Desert Gold Stakes. Madame Bardot, 24.20 and 5.20. Princess Rojan at 3.55 an hour. Hawk at 5.95. Quinella on the event was 91.25. The trifecta, a massive 4.7, 5.7, 60. Well, we saw a top effort today by Megabucks to take out the Lion Red Wait for Age Stakes here at Ellerslie. Been a pretty good day's racing so far. Until our next racing telecast, which will be next Saturday at 10 to 5, when we bring you coverage from Rotorua and Wellington. Goodbye from Ellerslie.
Next on One, Ascot has the prestige and the horses have the breeding. It's Judgment Day for the aristocrat of horses, the Arabian.
Ever dreamed of taking a train through Europe, jet boating down the Wanganui River, or tripping up to Rajasthan for
3 days of exhilarating madness?
What about going to the Coromandel for a weekend away? Or getting away with Hannah to Bali, and maybe even driving through the beauty of the Loire Valley in France with Kevin?
Hello, Lucy God.
Why not jump on some skis in Romania and come on holiday with us after Sale of the Century, Wednesdays on One.
Of Cosigner. Ideal Centre Man coming up quickly around the outside there, followed closely by Sedestin as the field packs up. Terrific is still there, the Phantom looking for a run. Over on the inside then came Chigaro, followed by Stirring Hunter in that leading group, and there followed by Power of Destiny, and Ritzy was printed back along the inside, lost his posse. Research back with him, followed by Apollo Run right around the outside, and so is Coal Diesel, and they're packed up on the home turn in the Cup now. Many chances. Cosign tackled by Ideal Centre Man, wider out Sedestin, and the Phantom is joining him with a good run down the outside. Very deep on the track. Coal Diesel is rattling home, and so is Apollo Run. Halfway down the running now, Sedestin takes the lead, but Coal Diesel is swamping them. Coal Diesel hit the front, 100 metres left to go. No Rizzy is bursting clear. Coal Diesel in front of No Rizzy coming after it. Coal Diesel in front. Coal Diesel has won the Foster's Caulfield Cup. A long neck to No Rizzy. Third home is the Phantom, I think, or Apollo Run, and a photo for third. The Phantom and Apollo Run. Back behind them then came Cosign with Stirring.
So first home. Station. And injury blues for the Kiwis before the first league test. Good evening. Just days after the end of a crippling dispute which had tied up the country's ports for 3 weeks, there's more trouble on the waterfront. A row over demarcation has blown up again, this time at Lyttelton. 4 watersiders have been suspended after refusing to work while harbour workers loaded a ship, and more industrial action could be on the way.
The dispute in Lyttelton is over the loading of Japanese coal ship, the Yamanaka Maru. Watersiders want to work one of 3 front-end loaders transferring coal from this pile onto the conveyor belt that loads the ship. They refuse to allow the loading of the coal under any other conditions. So their employer, the New Zealand Stevedoring Company, suspended 4 of them. Representatives from the Stevedoring Company didn't want to appear on camera today. They say negotiations with the Watersiders are still at a delicate stage and they don't want to jeopardise anything. Last week saw the end of the National Waterfront strike. Long negotiations finally brought about an uneasy peace between Watersiders and harbour workers. Just what effect this latest row will have on the fragile truce and the waterfront strike is hard to tell. Watersiders here say they're considering taking industrial action. Meanwhile, their employers are trying to use a Labour Court injunction to force them back to work. But that won't be heard until Tuesday. David Jameson for the Network News.
After a week of political turmoil, opposition leader Jim Bolger was back among his constituents today, buoyed by the latest political poll results. Labor has lost its lead. The Herald NRB poll now placing National 3 points ahead of the government. But some political commentators say the tight result is also good news for the government.
A relaxed and confident Jim Bolger spent much of today in Tarata, a village in a remote corner of his electorate. Tarata was celebrating its centenary this weekend and gave Jim Bolger the ideal opportunity to get back amongst the people who've kept him in Parliament. The latest poll done at the beginning of the month has put National ahead by 3 points. Jim Bolger says he's not surprised by the result, which reverses the last poll in August, which had Labor ahead.
We've been leading in the polls now for almost 2 years by some spectacular margins at times. There was some minor shift in preferences at the time of David Lange retiring, Geoffrey Palmer coming on board, but that was going to be temporary. The problems that concern New Zealanders are still there.
But while Mr Bolger thinks the result is good news for National, some commentators think the opposite.
Well, it's a good poll for the government to be so close behind. It's moving backwards compared with August, but then August was an unreal atmosphere just after the change of leader.
This week's demotion of outspoken Tauranga MP Winston Peters came after the poll was taken. Jim Bolger says the only criticism he's had about the move is that he should have done it sooner.
It's unfortunate that it occurred, but I don't think it will affect the polls. People are finally voting on whether they believe the government is addressing their issues.
I would think that the next poll, due in the early part of next month, the next Halen poll, may very well show Labor ahead again as a result of the disunity in the National Party, unless they fix this very fast.
For Jim Bolger, the crucial element is still the high number of undecided votes. 28% of those polled still don't know who they want as the government next year. Carolyn Weston for the Network News.
Out of the devastation of San Francisco's earthquake has come a once-in-a-lifetime chance for a group of New Zealanders. A team of Kiwi scientists and engineers is in the stricken city, gathering valuable information for those preparing for the big one here at home. It's been a rare opportunity to study the effects of a major quake on a modern city.
They were still digging out the bodies today from the notorious stretch of motorway that had been considered good engineering was now revealed to be a death trap. And as rescue workers and engineers went through the wreckage, more than a dozen New Zealand scientists went in there with them to see what they could learn to try and prevent future tragedies like this here or in New Zealand.
Oh no, we'll get another chance like this. The San Andreas Fault is a very active fault in Southern California. The predictions are that we will get a larger earthquake than this, probably in my professional working lifetime. Well, this isn't the big one, that's the first thing. It's a relatively small earthquake by world standards. It's relatively small by California standards. And one of the first things that needs to be done, I think, is to debunk the idea that this is the San Andreas Fault moving with its full vengeance. It's a significant earthquake, but not the big one.
The signs on the shattered concrete tell the story in police shorthand. One car, no bodies. We got our first close look at the Cyprus motorway today and at the complete failure of this stretch of 30-year-old technology. But we also heard that New Zealand does better than this, a lot better.
Well, we will undoubtedly get confirmation of the fact that concrete that isn't ductile doesn't behave very well in earthquakes. New Zealand has again made a very significant contribution, probably the most important world contribution in the area of the ductility of concrete in the last 15 years. I'm sure that this is going to be their contribution is going to be endorsed by this earthquake.
New Zealand scientists will be taking home vital information from areas like this so that when the next big quake hits New Zealand, and there's no doubt that one will, we may be able to get through it better than they did here. Kurt Sanders in Oakland, California for the Network News.
Well, something that seems to have come out of the quake undamaged is America's spirit of free enterprise. T-shirts with the words, "I survived the Great Quake of '89" are selling by the thousands all over the city of San Francisco. But as the task of rebuilding is getting underway, there are charges that San Francisco isn't getting the help it needs.
President Bush flew into a political row, the mayor of San Francisco complaining that a recent visit by the vice president had been just a photo opportunity and demanding more federal aid for his city. So Mr. Bush began his visit across the bay in Oakland, on the collapsed motorway where most of the quake victims died.
We have a lot to learn about how the forces work.
Did you have eyewitness filming? I mean, did anybody happen to be leaning against?
I didn't see
boat?
on this.
Mr. Bush heard many stories of heroism and saw the little 6-year-old boy cut from a car alive after 30 hours. He lost a leg, but will live. Officials are hoping that once he's seen the damage for himself, Mr. Bush will authorize far more government funds to help the cleanup. Imagine having to pile everything you can on a shopping trolley and leave your home forever. People whose houses have been condemned have just 15 minutes to pile their treasures outside. And most ironic of all, this 10-year-old girl and her 12-year-old friend had only just arrived in a children's hospital here to be treated for injuries received in the Armenian earthquake. They screamed in terror, but this time the building didn't fall down.
This woman's pregnant. Give her all the milk she wants.
In San Francisco, the long lines of hungry and homeless are longer now. People who had little enough to begin with have lost even that. Hungry men fighting over a loaf of bread. It's very difficult to imagine the kind of force the earthquake must exert. That is, until you go to the epicenter and you see for yourself. There you find a giant crack where the earth was torn in half by the immense forces 10 miles below. A stark reminder of the sheer power of nature and time to remember that what it did a few days ago can always do again.
Australia and France have scored a victory in their bid to have Antarctica declared a world park. In Paris, the 39-nation Conference on Antarctica has decided to consider making the continent a global reserve and banning all mining forever. Australia and France refused to sign last year's convention sponsored by New Zealand, which regulates mining but doesn't ban it. One small action by a white Commonwealth country could still spark an African boycott of the Auckland Commonwealth Games. That's the warning today from Russell Marshall, who's with Commonwealth heads of government in Kuala Lumpur, trying to ensure that no such action is taken. Mr. Marshall says he's confident it won't happen, but warns that the biggest worry is sportsmen from countries where New Zealand has little direct influence.
Britain's Margaret Thatcher will be one leader. The Prime Minister will be lobbying at the conference retreat in Langkawi this weekend. It's countries like Britain and Australia who hold the key to a boycott-free games. Back at the conference centre, Mr. Marshall's been trying to tie up what he sees as the 1% of doubt remaining over the games. Commonwealth diplomats like Secretary-General Sonny Ramphal have stopped short of 100% assurances.
If there's any weak spot, it's when there is another attempt to get a body of sports people to South Africa, and one country decides this is outrageous, they won't compete, say, against British people or Australians or whoever, or I hope it doesn't come to that, some New Zealanders who might be competing there.
So it's not only the Nigerians who are the biggest worry, it's sports people from white countries like Australia and Britain who may break ranks and compete in South Africa that are a bigger risk, according to Mr. Marshall.
In the possible event that such a thing might happen, we've got to make sure that nobody acts unilaterally. And by and large, the Africans don't want, yet again, to miss out. And they are all saying, let's not have somebody leading a stampede.
Mr. Marshall's still worried about Ghana. It's not at this conference, but the Nigerians have promised to make sure Ghana supports the Games. With South Africa being given a 6-month breathing space by the Commonwealth to make reforms, Mr. Marshall's got his fingers crossed that nothing will happen in that time to jeopardise the Games. Alistair Carthew in Kuala Lumpur for the Network News.
Coming up, the Caulfield Cup ran just minutes ago in Melbourne.
And Electricorp fails to settle the dust at Lake Tekapo.
Tonight, an early morning international sports doubleheader. Live at 2:45, the crucial first rugby league test between the Kiwis and Great Britain. Then at 6:30, some All Black magic when they play Swansea. Highlights of both games Sunday afternoon, 4:15 on Television 1. We are the one for sport.
When he was 16, Henry Johnson had a dream: to be a top jazz player. Henry also had a superannuation plan with National Mutual for 36 years. And we've kept pace with his needs, just as he's kept up with jazz. Henry fulfilled that dream long ago. And with his recent super payout, he's begun another dream. National Mutual. When it's important to you, it's important to us.
Mitre 10 have done it again with some great outdoor products and some great outdoor prices to help you spruce up your home for the great days of summer.
Good on ya.
Dulux Timbercrawl 4 litres just $49.95, 10 litres $99.95.
Good on ya.
Get spring growth into trim with a Trimrite electric trimmer, $99.95.
Good on ya.
Elco's combination step and 13-foot extension ladder, $149.
Pick it up, turn it on video. Pick it up, turn it on. You choose the show.
Excuse me.
Oh.
Rent a video this month, spell video, and you could fly Continental Airlines to Los Angeles and New York to see the world's most exciting stage shows. Or win one of 3 trips to Sydney. Or one of thousands of instant prizes. Every ticket could be a winner, so get it to your video store now. You never know what you'll come out with.
Video!
The sea. The challenge. Man has always been drawn to it. The feeling of spray in your face. A freshness, a challenge you can feel. Old Spice brings you that feeling. Old Spice, the mark of a man.
Yes, indeed. So how was the trip?
Long. You couldn't have sent me further.
Yes. So tell me about this GCS network server system. Can it do all they claim?
Impressive. Sure? Yes, it can.
Blast. I'm told the Americans and the Japanese haven't done it. We haven't done it. How the devil can a bunch of New Zealanders do it?
You mean to say you've integrated the power of Unisys, IBM, NCR, and ICL through this?
That's right.
How?
You must find that out. When are you back?
I'm not.